Just 4 years after my psychopathic father was spouting these lies in court,
I did not kill Noreen. I never harmed her at all.
and after this testimony from me ultimately sealed his fate,
As I heard a scream, said, "Where's my mother?" To my father, and he said, "Well, Mommy took a little vacation, Collier." I heard a thud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
now facing a lifetime of incarceration, my father then began to spin a web of lies to get himself out of prison. But you know what? We got them all on tape. Now, this video I had done about 2 years ago when I found this tape uncovered in a shoebox that I had just stashed away somewhere. And I actually have two more that will be coming out after this episode. However, I wanted to keep the original video that I did with my long hair, post-COVID, surfer guy look, because the live reaction is so natural and it's the first time I'm ever hearing it. So I love to bring you guys on this journey because this is what a real psychopath and a master manipulator looks like. And he's manipulating these radio hosts with the sole purpose of trying to get himself out of prison, trying to gain sympathy and trying to get people to believe his stories, which he tried to get me to believe for many, many years. You guys can check out the other videos with his letters from prison and my film, A Murder in Mansfield, if you want to know more about that. Now, with that said, let's get into it. Man, do I have an episode for you guys today. Woo! I have reached back into the archives on this one for all of you, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But first, and actually, for those of you that subscribe to my Patreon, you are already kind of privy to this episode because I did a post on this a few days ago sharing the material that I'm sharing with you guys today. So just know that you get first-hand access when you subscribe to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Collier Landry. All the money goes here to support this podcast, which currently is ad-free, but not for long. But your support is what makes this program possible and allows me to create the content for you guys that, you know, that I feel best suits you guys, my audience. And I know from the responses that I get on social media, and now I'm on TikTok, check it out, that you guys are really enjoying what I'm doing. So your support is appreciated if you can. And if you can't, at least subscribing to the podcast, downloading, telling your friends about it, wherever you get your podcasts. That helps a lot. It really does because, I love doing this for you guys. So there's my little sales pitch. Anyways, today's episode is super cool. And I don't know if it's super cool or not. We're going to find out because it's all going to be live, as a live to tape, if you will. And speaking of tape, yes, there is a tape. Okay. So first of all, speaking of coercive control and manipulation. So in my hands right here is a tape that I found in the bin of my father's letters. And this tape is dated December 29th, 1994. Almost 5 years to the day of my mother's murder. And what makes this particular tape interesting, which I have not listened to, by the way, we are going to listen to it together. Now, I have recorded it and put it, like I said, on the Patreon, but I didn't listen to it. I literally just recorded it and, cut it down and whatever. I didn't hear much of anything of what my father said because I wanted to do it for you guys on the actual podcast. So my father was interviewed on a radio show that's called What's Right, What's Left with Pastor Ernie Sanders. Pastor Sanders actually still has the same radio program. And this is 1994. So this is 28 years later, right? Is my math correct there? Yeah, 28 years later. He still has the program. It's now like a part podcast and it's on the internet, and he's on, broadcast on radio stations across the United States and probably across the world. Ironically, my producer, who I told about this tape, reached out to him. And so there is actually a part 2 to this particular episode, which is going to come out next week, where I discuss not what's on the tape because I hadn't listened to it, but I discuss some of the things that were brought up. It'll make sense at the end of this, but it's very interesting hearing this. And what makes this interesting is a few weeks ago, I did an episode with my father's letters where he was gaslighting, and I alluded to like this Chinese gold smuggling and things, but this letter was written in, I think, the end of November 1994, and he said something that was really poignant, and he said, there's going to be a lot of things that come out about mommy. Yes, my father refers to, in letters, my mother as mommy. It's weird. I know you guys have all commented on it, but it's the truth, because I'm reading them as he writes them. But he says, you're going to hear these things about mommy that might be upsetting to you, but just know your mother was a good woman and all this stuff, because he's gaslighting me and he's manipulating me. Well, obviously he was alluding to this particular interview that we're going to listen to, because I know that this is full of some crazy talk from my father. I'm pretty sure. And I don't like using that word crazy. I don't use that to describe anyone else, but like my father, to give a little more context to this. So at this time, my father was trying to get an appeal for his conviction for murdering my mother. And he was coming up with a bunch of stories, and we're going to hear what he says. So, let's get to it, shall we? So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to, we're going to listen to this together, and then I'll stop and I'll probably offer some commentary, or maybe I'll offer some anger or whatever, but this will be really interesting and fun, guys. Trust me. So in with the earbuds we go. Woohoo. Music's interesting.
Good afternoon once again, and welcome to What's Right, What's Left with your host, Radio Pastor Ernie Sanders. Today's show comes to you live from the studios of WCCD AM 1000. The guest for the second hour will be Dr. Jack Boyle, a prisoner. And now to tell you more, here's your host,
Dr.
Radio
Jack
Pastor
Boyle,
Ernie Sanders.
a prisoner.
Okay, we're back. We're expecting a call from Dr. Jack Boyle. Now, what Dr. Boyle has to say, is that Dr. Boyle? Okay, is going to be his.
What's interesting is he says Dr. Boyle.
View,
but my father's not a doctor anymore,
because we don't know what
you
he's
get
going
stripped
to say.
of your medical
We're
license
going
when
to give him
you
his
when you go to
opportunity
prison for murder.
tell a
Just
story.
fun fact.
Dr. Boyle, are you there?
Yes.
Say hi to all of Cleveland.
Sanders?
Yes, this is
Hi,
Pastor
how are you?
Sanders. I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, good. Struggling, but we're keeping our head above water.
Well, say hi to all of Cleveland.
Struggling, but we're keeping our head above
Dr.
water.
Boyle, you are right now calling from a prison in Lebanon, Ohio. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And you're spending, well, let you tell the folks who you are and tell them your story. This is your opportunity to get your side of the story out.
Well, I'm Dr. Jack Boyle of Mansfield, Ohio, and in June of 1990, I was convicted of the murder of my wife, Noreen. We have been fighting that conviction, which we feel to be the result of an unfair trial, and no evidence to support that conviction since that date.
No evidence to support that conviction?
Oh boy. Noreen's body was found, or allegedly her body was found, under my basement in a new home in Erie, Pennsylvania on January 25th of 90. And the circumstances surrounding her disappearance and the entire case itself are extremely fragmented.
Cold brew coffee.
And we have been attacking
doesn't make it any
through
easier.
The court system, the actual trial, and possibly some of your readers or listeners may have heard, on December 24th, attorney Tom Adgate of Akron, Ohio, and his associates who have taken on my case made an announcement that they have obtained permission to
This call originates from
begin the exhumation process and get a proper identity on the body, and to actually complete an autopsy, which we were denied prior to trial.
Okay, so I'm going to stop this just for a moment to give you guys, the audience, a little bit of context. So this attorney that he's talking about, and I had referenced this guy before in the letter in the episode with the letter, which is like from a few weeks ago. I believe it is episode 34 of Moving Past Murder, 35, 30, 33, something like that. It's in the 30s. which I am too. Just kidding. So in that letter, I realized that. So what had happened is around this time. So I'm, 1994. So I'm 16 years old now. So I'm a junior in high school, right? Does that make sense? Junior. Yeah, I'm a junior in high school. And my father, there was a bunch of people that had come forward, this is all tied together, obviously, and this is tied to next week's episode as well. So there was a bunch of people that come forward and said that my mother's body was not my mother's, and they wanted to. There was a big article in the Akron Beacon Journal written by a journalist named Ted Joy. There was a book written by a gentleman named Martin Yant called Rotten to the Core, which was talking about corruption in Mansfield, Ohio, and the police department and all this stuff. And now I cannot speak to any of that because I don't know like what or what not went on in the Mansfield Police Department. All I can say is that my experience with the Mansfield Police Department and Lieutenant David Messmore was top notch, solid. Like, we're going to, outside of treating my mother's case like a missing persons case, but once Dave Messmore listened to me on the, whatever it was, the 1st of January, 1990, and like that my mother was dead, like from then on, it was game on. So I have nothing but respect and admiration for the police department in Mansfield, Ohio. Just want to get that out of the way. So, and also like what my father's probably going to say is really crazy. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty nutty. Those are his opinions. That's it. And it's the opinions of a man who is convicted for murdering my mother that I witnessed, grabbing for straws. So that's kind of what we're witnessing here. So he's grabbing for straws. And, but anyways, so to tie this in, I had, because of these questions that came up, it was a question about my mother's body weight, her eye color being brown instead of blue like mine. I got my mother's eyes, so they were very blue. And there was this question of like, what was it really my mother's body? And in my sort of quest to kind of have my peace with the situation and everything, and I thought, okay, I will authorize the exhumation of my mother's body and give a DNA test to see if it is. And ultimately my aunt, my mother's sister, Carol, she also gave a DNA test as well. So that is how they figured out that it was my mother's body, right? So to give the benefit of the doubt as a child who was healing and who I guess, honestly, at the time, maybe there was still this little small part of me that was hoping that wasn't my mother's body. Then maybe my mother was going to come back and, reappear like nothing ever happened. I mean, I think ultimately when you're a child that goes through a trauma like that and your mother is taken away from you so abruptly and so horrifically, I do think that you most certainly probably try to, you just try to really, you never really let go of hope that maybe it's wrong. Like maybe she really is going to come back and see me. And to be honest with you guys, like, and this is just me being real here, I did have a lot of those feelings growing up. Like maybe this would still happen. And I would say that probably even like when I moved to LA, I was like, maybe I'll see her on the streets. And I know that was not going to happen. But I think there's a small part of you inside that really hopes that maybe this shit isn't true and that maybe it's all been a nightmare and you'll wake up one day and everything will be right as rain. Of course, that's stuff that dreams are made of. But anyways, let's continue.
Determine the cause of death.
All right, now they claimed, what did they claim was the cause of death?
The cause of death that was claimed by the state of Ohio was that suffocation by means of a plastic bag placed over the head and blunt trauma to the head.
Now, there's a couple things that I'm a little concerned about or have some questions about. First of all, when they set bail on you, what was the bail they set?
The bail was actually set at $5 million cash.
Now, that is, this is, that's just not unusual.
Yes, that's absolutely outrageous. I'm not quite certain of the details, but I believe that Noriega's bail may have been maybe $2 or $3 million, and I think Leona Helmsley was about $2 or $3 million. Yet in Richland County, my bail was set at $5 million cash.
Do you have any ideas on why that was the case? I mean, obviously they didn't want you to.
Really? Are we talking about? We're talking about bail.
Why so high?
We're talking about bail money.
I think the choice here was based on several considerations. Retrospectively, the Richland County and the city of Mansfield itself had been under a significant amount of scrutiny by the FBI for several female deaths that had
scrutiny
not
by
been
the
solved.
FBI?
I think it was 6 or 8 murders that had not been solved over the prior 6 or 8 years. And that was well documented in a report called the Green Hill Report.
The Green Hill Report.
By a retired FBI agent.
Is that like the Green New Deal?
And that came out in about August of '89. And I think that the Mansfield Police Department was facing some pressure for not solving any of these crimes. And when the disappearance of Noreen Boyle arose, we were in the middle of a divorce, which was favorable to me. The opportunity.
That is one thing that's true.
Think,
my father was raking my mother over the coals in the divorce.
Show trial, and I think the bail is just symptomatic of the show trial concept that they tried to establish.
All right, there's been a lot of question about a lot of these murders and possibly the Mansfield Police Department being involved or tied in some way to some of these murders. Have you heard any of that talk?
Well, that's correct. There has been much rumor and speculation that certain police officers were involved with the death or disappearance or association of many of the women that subsequently found up murdered. In fact, in my own case, there is a strong rumor between retired police captain David Messmore of the Mansfield Police Department and his relationship with Noreen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's common knowledge in Mansfield.
I'm going to tell you something, 100%. And I remember when all these rumors were coming out. The notion that my mother knew, let alone had a relationship with Dave Messmore, is utterly fanciful. That's a very polite way of saying it's complete bullshit. This is, again, a person who's grabbing for straws, looking for ways to blame other people for his actions, which, as we know now, was the case after seeing, Making a Murder in Mansfield and my father's. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's this is what we are listening to, is a man trying to grab for straws and try to manipulate not only the pastor and his audience, but he was trying to manipulate me and everyone around him. It's interesting.
I mean, if you talk to people down there, they have got the reputation that the Chicago cops had back in the 40s. But
Chicago cops.
They have a reputation as what?
Chicago cops.
That the Chicago cops had
like
during the Capone era.
Oh yes. Well, I think
I don't think that was the 40s. I think that was the 30s
is well
with
known
Capone.
In Mansfield has
bootlegging.
More recently been brought out by the book, I think just published by Marty Yant, called Rotten to the Core.
Rotten to the Core.
We're going to probably be doing a program on that. You hang tight. We'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Hang tight. Oh, we have an ad. God, this is like 80s.
Pretty good on the roadways. Have your sunglasses with you this afternoon. This WCCD traffic update is brought to you by Southwest Airlines.
Now off the freeways,
really?
And onto the free waves.
Wish I had listened to this before.
What's
yeah,
left?
I could have cut all this.
Okay, we're back. I'm Radio Pastor Ernie Sanders. We have Dr. Jack Boyle with us, and he is calling from Lebanon, Ohio, from WCI, Warren Correctional Institute. Dr. Boyle,
which I visited my father
were talking
at Warren
about
Correctional
some of
Institution several times.
The allegations of the corruptions in the Mansfield Police Department. There's some things that, I've been looking at your case, and there's a couple of things that jump right out at me. And I'm saying that because we have a very large prison ministry, and I spend a lot of time with prison inmates all over the state. Now, you are charged with first-degree murder. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were convicted on first-degree murder. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He was convicted on aggravated murder, not
that means that
murder.
This was not
it was premeditated.
a crime of passion, but you were convicted of premeditated murder. And everyone I know that has been convicted of that is done on death row. Why aren't you on death row? Why are you doing life?
I can't give you an actual answer on that, Pastor. All I know is when the trial concluded, the presiding judge, James Henson...
the reason why my father wasn't given the death penalty is because of me. For the record. Because, yeah, he had a kid. And he had my sister, who was just, born 12 days before he was arrested. So, yeah, they didn't give him the death penalty for that reason. Just saying.
Sentenced me to 20 to life in prison with parole eligibility somewhere around the year 2010. And there was never any question of any death penalty brought forward at all. So I really don't know the particulars of his decision, but I think it's symptomatic of the rest of the entire legal proceeding in Mansfield. And that's, to sum it up in one word, suspect is the best word.
Okay, see, the thing is, I spoke to the judge before he sentenced my father.
It almost sounds like these people are saying, look, we're going to put this guy away. He's going to stay away. But they were hesitant to give you the death sentence. It's almost like they were saying, I don't want his blood on my hands. We really don't believe he's guilty of first-degree murder, but we've got to keep him out of the way. Do you get that feeling?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's many indications that the prosecution made conscious decisions to conceal not only evidence, but the truth from the public.
Wow.
And we're looking at several things. For example, just about 7 weeks ago, we discovered that the plastic bag that was over the head of the decedent, the body, had a partial fingerprint on it. That fingerprint was discovered by the FBI, and it was found not to be Dr. Boyle's fingerprint and not to be anything in the FBI files. Prosecutor Mayer, the Mansfield Police Department, were fully aware of this prior to my trial, but this evidence was never presented at trial.
On this
all right,
case.
When you speak of the body, and when you Dr. Boyle, you're speaking of yourself.
Low
and
profile for the FBI to get involved, even though it did cross state lines, which that was always a thing that I
Noreen,
was curious
about. And your ex-wife.
Yes.
Or was it really Noreen?
Well, we don't really know that. The Beacon Journal did an extensive, I think, 8 to 10 month investigation and discovered many abnormalities, lack of evidentiary support, certainly a numerous amount of questions regarding the identity of the body, ranging from body height, body weight, eye color, missing organs, etc. And again, the only identification of the body was made by Mansfield Police Lieutenant at that time, David Messmore. No family members identified the body.
I'm pretty sure that my mother's sister ID'd my mom. I'm pretty sure, because I remember her coming in, and I think that she did go down and look at the body. But just for the record, my mother was identified not by Lieutenant David Messmore. I mean, maybe he was like, that looks like Noreen Boyle to me, which, as those of you that have seen the film A Murder in Mansfield, there is me looking at the case file for the first time and seeing the photographs of my mother's dead body, which was a challenging moment for me, to put it lightly. But my mother was identified by her dental records, and it was actually the dentist, that was my dentist and her dentist, and I believe also the orthodontist, that verified these records, these dental records for my mother. So that's how she was identified, not by Lieutenant Messmore going, oh yeah, I know her because we were having an affair, or whatever my father's alluding to, which is just crazy town.
Prints were taken from the body. The dental examination was a partial dental examination. No blood samples were taken from the body to corroborate anything in that area. And all of that was orchestrated by Messmore, unfortunately.
I'm going to ask you a question, and Dr. Boyle, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. Just if you would say, I would rather not answer that, I would understand why, because it would be a personal question. There have been allegations made that a a police officer in the Mansfield Police Department was having an affair with your ex-wife Noreen during at the time when the so-called murder took place. Is that correct? And you don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
That is correct.
And now, was this the police officer also that was assigned to investigate this murder?
Call originates from Warren
That is correct.
Institution.
Boy, there's just a lot of strange things taking place here. I mean, this is this whole thing it stinks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, I guess that leaves a couple questions.
The whole thing does stink, and yes, it does leave a couple of questions, but not in the way that you guys are talking about it. Wow. Let's keep listening.
That body is not Noreen, and I hope, I just pray if it was Noreen that she went home to be with the Lord. If it's not her, then my question is, who is it? And the next question would be, where's Noreen?
Well, that's a very good question. The Beacon Journal turned up some people who thought they saw Noreen anywhere from Toledo to Columbus, Ohio to California. We don't really know where Noreen is because no one's tracked her down yet.
My mom definitely wasn't in Toledo.
Part of it is conceivable that the body could very well be Noreen.
Wow.
But there's been such a hodgepodge of mistakes in the autopsy that we have to seriously question, obviously, the cause of death and the actual positive identification of the body. And we've already had a preliminary review of the autopsy video and the autopsy report by Dr. Cox in the Summit County coroner, and he differs on the cause of death from that which was presented by the state of Ohio. Now, you must recall, we filed a proper motion to have that body, to have an autopsy and a forensic examination on that body by our own medical experts, and we were denied that by the trial court. And this is absolutely unheard of in our society, where the rules of law and the rules of evidence, in particular in Ohio, permit you to review the evidence. In fact, when we filed the motion in court, the prosecutor came back and said, well, the body was no longer in the custody, possession, and control of the state of Ohio and was buried in Maryland. And our request to examine that body was filed within 6 days after my arrest.
So it seems like that there was a real hurry to get that body, and that's not normal.
That body's what?
That is not normal procedure.
Oh, no, absolutely not normal. In fact, ironically, or however you want to look at it, when the announcement was made by Tom Adgate that we're exhuming the body, the Richland County prosecutor, James Mayer, came back on the front page of the Mansfield News Journal yesterday and said that he is going to oppose any exhumation.
So here's a couple of things that are super duper interesting and very easy to gloss over if you don't know the facts. So the difficult thing here is my mother's body was buried in wet concrete. She was dead for 25 days. So if you think about that, if you think about the fact that God, this is really hitting me when I think about it. So the body was like decomposing already. So to bury my mother's body quickly after doing an autopsy, which most likely didn't yield a lot of results. I mean, you have to think that so this is 2022 that we're in. This is 32 years ago. Forensics were not what they are now, right? It's interesting to hear them talk about this. I don't think anyone with a rational brain goes, okay, a body that's been decomposing for 25 days is going to yield. Let's just put it through more autopsies. And I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they thought they could get another autopsy. Who knows?
This is a man who has no legal standing in the case. We have probable cause, number one. We have the permission of the next of kin to exhume the body. And this man now does not want this body exhumed.
We're going to have to break right here for a break. We'll be right back. This is getting more and more interesting, folks.
No ID found.
No ID found.
And now back with more of What's Right, What's Left. Here's Radio Pastor Ernie Sanders.
Okay, we're back, and we have Dr. Jack Boyle. And, folks, we're giving Dr. Jack Boyle his opportunity to come and tell his story. And the reason we do that is because I don't know what Dr. Boyle is going to tell you. I'm asking him some questions. I have some information on this case. But the bottom line is everyone should have an opportunity to tell their story. In today's society, it's getting harder to do that. Our judicial system is becoming more and more corrupt. And I want to praise God that we still have some honest judges. We still have some honest attorneys. But, we have to look at it and face the facts. That is what's happening out there. And we're here to warn you, to let you know, because we need to make some changes. And I am a person I believe, look, if you do the crime, you got it, you should receive the punishment.
Yeah,
if you do
you should.
The crime, you need to receive the punishment. Absolutely.
Do the crime, gotta do the time. Do the time.
I am very, very 100% in favor of justice. But and justice means also that you should have a fair trial. And that's the problem.
My father's trial.
10 years ago, 15 years ago.
My father's trial was 3.5 weeks. That's a long time. No, it might have even been longer. Unbelievable.
Let's go back 15 years ago. If you would have told me that this type of thing was taking place, I wouldn't have believed you. But after sitting in courtroom after courtroom after courtroom and hearing the things that I'm hearing from prosecuting attorneys, the guys I always thought were the good guys. I thought these guys, they were telling the truth, okay? And the judges were the good guys, and they were going to tell you the truth. And the people on trial were normally the bad guys, and that's the way it worked. But folks, I got to the point where I had a hard time distinguishing between the players. Who was the biggest crook? And I hate to say it, but that's happening more and more often. Do you find that to be the case, Dr. Boyle?
Yeah, yes, I do. I had the same attitude prior to my own trial because I thought things were truth, justice, and the American way, but it's not that way in the courtrooms as I experienced it in Richland County. In fact, I would dare say that the search for truth is not in the highest tradition of the prosecuting attorney's office in Richland County.
Winning is the bottom line. By all means, win at any means.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think there's a complete abdication of the responsibilities to the Constitution as manifested by Richland County. There's no doubt in my mind. We're talking about critical evidence that was denied the jury's review. There's no way the jury could have made any type of quote-unquote rational decision to convict when they never heard the evidence of a different cause of death, perhaps a different time of death. In fact, there was no time of death ever given. All the mistakes that were made in the case, it's just an inclusion of additional materials that are relevant to the determination of the merits that were never even brought out at trial. It's very easy to say that the legal conclusions that were reached in the prior procedure are plainly erroneous in legal terms. The trial was all fouled up, and that's a generous term right there.
Well, absolutely, and I've seen this in case after case after case. My own experience, one time I went to get a bottle of pop downstairs.
Bottle of pop, because we're all from Ohio in the Midwest. We say
and
pop.
At that machine, the prosecuting attorney, I was a witness in a case for the defense, and the prosecuting attorney actually came to me and asked me if I couldn't lie, then to at least not say anything when I was on the stand. And this was the very same guy that sat next to me at a men's prayer breakfast. Boy, I tell you, I felt like taking that man out and just whipping the dickens out of him right outside. But you know, it's unbelievable that these things take place and these things happen. You know, you should have had an opportunity to give your side of the story. I mean, you should have a fair opportunity. So what's going to happen now? Are you going to be able to get a Marine's body exhumed?
Well, we're getting the body exhumed. We don't see any difficulty with that, even though Attorney Mayer has made a grandstand approach to the public in Mansfield that he's not going to permit such an exhumation.
What are they afraid of? What is it they're afraid of?
That's the first question that came into my mind when I heard that. I think any logical, rational human being would say, what is he trying to hide? And it's quite obvious Mayer is covering up something or wants something covered up.
Do you think that it's
or
possibly,
it's just complete
if it's
bullshit,
not Marine's
and
body,
it's like, hey, we don't want to put
body it is there, is what he doesn't want people to know?
We don't want the family, we don't want the community to go through this bullshit again. I mean, I would think that's a pretty valid reason to not go through all of this. I don't think it's a cover. Like, what are you going to find after? It's just, this is... See, this is, as they're trying to say, well, this is the fucked up side of the justice system as far as, people not getting justice. No, this is the fucked up side of the justice system. This is why the American justice system, love it or hate it, is, it's completely flawed. And there's a lot of, malfeasance that goes along with it, but it is still the best justice system in the world. And this is why, because here's a guy who clearly killed his wife, whose son witnessed it, and testified in court for 2.5 days against his father. And then goes, this guy's been in prison for almost 5 years or 4 years, or my father had been in custody for 5 years at this point. And, he's still allowed to make these accusations and still allowed to go through with an appellate process and still allowed to request the exhumation and get the exhumation of the body, to get a DNA test to see if it yields anything. I mean, not a lot of people get that opportunity, especially don't get it. I mean, it's, so as much as this, our radio host here, and this is, this is not his fault anyways, but, as they want to say, well, there's issues with the justice system. It's also, there is an issue with like people abusing the system, like my father, who, as we all have seen in the film, admits to murdering my mother, admits to pushing her and getting into a fight, his own story of that, but whatever. This is a man grabbing for straws to try to get out of prison.
Could very well be. I mean, I think this whole thing was a certain willingness on the part of the prosecutor to subordinate the law to perhaps his own political interest. I mean, he comes from a family tradition of corruption. His father was removed from the trial courts in Mansfield by the Ohio Supreme Court several years ago. And he appears to be carrying on the same family tradition at one level.
Well, all right, let's just take it. If they exhume the body, and you believe that's going to happen, right?
Yes.
And it's not Maureen, I guess.
Noreen.
What's going to determine on what happens
Noreen is her
from
name.
that point will be determined by who the body is. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I think in very simplistic legal terms, if the body is determined not to be Noreen's, then I will be released from the penitentiary because I'm charged with murdering Noreen. And if the body doesn't match up, well, then bingo, that's the evidentiary support does not hold up.
Well, wait a minute, but you still have a body, and the body was still supposedly found in the house that you owned in Pennsylvania, correct?
Correct, yes.
Well, I mean, aren't you going to be charged in that case with the murder then of whoever that is?
Well, I really don't know what's in the prosecutor's mind. The interesting feature on that body, by the way, is that it was found on January 25th under fresh, wet concrete. And fresh, wet concrete was found on the wall of the basement. When I was charged with burying that body and cementing that gravesite December 31st or the first 3 or 4 days of January. So it's very peculiar that the concrete would be that fresh almost 30 days later. but I have no idea what the prosecutor will do in terms of
I mean, do we really think
if
that
the
my
body
father
is not Noreen.
Well,
buried the body straight away and
from
had
what
the
I
concrete and
understand,
everything
from what I
ready?
read in the paper, they're basing this on the
so.
fact that they traced a jackhammer that was rented by you. Is that correct?
That's correct. However, the jackhammer was never proven to be used. There was no evidence presented at trial that showed, number one, that the jackhammer was used, or that the concrete that was dug up, the concrete samples that they had, were dug up by a jackhammer. Everything was based on assumption and presumption.
Well, I mean, why would you rent a jackhammer if you weren't going to use it?
Oh, well, the jackhammer was rented in conjunction with Mark Davis, a friend of mine in Mansfield, who was going to use it on his property, a new office, and I was going to use it to get some bricks dug up in the back of my Hawthorne Lane home.
Okay, so then in fact you didn't use it, though, or did you? Did you use it there at your home?
I think that originally in the trial, my father said that he had gotten the jackhammer because he was going to do some plumbing work in the house, in our home in Mansfield, Ohio. That's in the basement, not bricks in the backyard. I don't even know what he's talking about, bricks in the backyard. I played in that backyard for 5 years. I don't really remember a whole lot of bricks going on in the backyard. We had this like little pine tree area that was right by the garage, so I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. A lot of looniness going on in this particular taped conversation.
Oh, no, it was never used at all.
Oh, okay. Well, hang tight. We're up against Metro traffic. We'll be back and find out why the hammer wasn't used.
Oh, we're up against the Metro traffic.
Still looking pretty good on the highways this afternoon. It's off the highways where we have some trouble. This WCCD traffic update is brought to you by Manpower Temporary Services.
Happy, sleepy, dopey, and duck. Grumpy, bashful, and sneezy. From the people who brought you Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin on Ice comes the most beloved fairy tale of all time, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, live on ice.
Get your tickets now at the Gundarina box office and all Ticketmaster locations.
The Gundarina box office.
Driving the truth home. Here's Radio Pastor Ernie Sanders with more What's Right, What's Left.
Okay, we're back. I'm Radio Pastor Ernie Sanders, and folks, we have Dr. Jack Boyle. Now, Dr. Boyle, you're professing to be a born-again Christian. If you died right now, you know you'd go home to be with the Lord. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, Pastor.
And praise the Lord for that. Let's
born-again Christian.
Take
He's
a
going to
look
go
at
home
this.
to the Lord.
Going back a little bit with this jackhammer. It was never rented. Why wasn't it ever used?
Well, the jackhammer was never used because Mark Davis got sick. And that basically undermined the usage of the jackhammer. And about the same time, on December 31st, is when Noreen took off. So that just prevented any use of using the jackhammer. In fact, it was returned to the store unused.
Well, you know, when this hits the newspapers, and we saw this in all the news, ABC, NBC, CBS had the picture of this jackhammer, and they had where it was rented from, and I mean, here it was. those news spots convicted you right there. I mean, you were convicted on the air before the trial even began, weren't you?
Oh, sure. There's no doubt on that. I think, again, it's just that an unfortunate tragedy that myself, my family, and friends should be utilized as a pawn in perhaps the political agenda of Mayor. It's an unfortunate situation, but I believe with faith in God and faith in family and friends and my attorneys, and believe it or not, faith in the legal system, this will be turned around. I expect a complete vindication.
Let me ask you this, and again, I know that this
is a man who murdered his wife,
and I know you have personal,
but he expects a vindication.
It's understandable. Do you think that you were double-crossed by Noreen and the police officer that's investigating this case?
Well, I suspect there is something going on because Noreen was losing the divorce. In effect, she lost the divorce. She was given limited alimony for only a period of 6 months, and the domestic relations judge told her to get a job. And that's what it boiled down to.
And I remember that. I remember my mother being very upset.
She would not be obtaining any of the large...
I remember that my mother was upset by that. Also, this is what happens when your husband has all the money after you put him through medical school and you're doing all his books and taking care of his money, his finances, and then he turns around and because he's a sociopath and a narcissist and decides to squeeze you out. So yeah, he was fucking my mother over in the divorce, big time. It's not the first time this tale has ever been heard.
Sums of money that she had anticipated.
Now, how could she benefit, though? But I mean, see, I wouldn't.
How does my mother benefit by getting herself murdered?
Pulling a hoax, but with this dead body. I mean, I don't know. Did they have a body they wanted to get rid of and decide to kill two birds with one stone, get rid of this person and blame it on you, or what?
Well, even possible that it's not a hoax. We must consider that it's possible that body is Noreen, and the fact that something went wrong in whatever business or relationship she was in. We know that she was into dealing with attempting to bring foreign children in the United States and sell them to childless couples. And it's quite possible that any extrapolation from that could have been dealing with drugs or other materials.
Well, that is
something went wrong.
That is a big black market business, and that's a slavery type of ring.
Yeah, wow.
That works both ways with taking kidnapped American children, and they ended up being sold into slavery there to a lot of your Arab sheiks, oil sheiks, and wealthy people in foreign countries. You don't think she was involved in that too, do you?
Well, we didn't know so much about that. We knew about the babies that she was getting from Taiwan and selling those on the black market.
My sister?
And we just suspect that she was also involved possibly with smuggling of gold, and there's a real possibility that narcotics could have been involved. I think in Noreen's quest for money, she would have tried anything. And so none of that surprises me.
Wow.
In Noreen's quest for money, she would have tried everything. My mother was not into drugs. My mother was not selling babies and children and gold. And, but I think my mother would have done anything in her quest for money to take care of her children. I don't think she would have resorted to criminal activity, but my mother would have most certainly said to my father, you need to pay for these children, and you need to take care of your son. And my father, I think I remember very specifically my father saying to my mother that, that she can go get a job at McDonald's, and that he doesn't care if I go to college and he's not going to pay a dime of it, and this, that, and the other. Because he was starting a new life with his girlfriend, Sherry Campbell, and she was pregnant with his daughter, my half-sister. And then she had 2 kids of her own. So, there was that. And he was starting a new life. And then he was going to screw over his current wife and his children, me, his son of 11 years at that time, because he wanted to lead a new life with his girlfriend in a new house in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's pretty much what happened.
Well, where do we go from here?
Well, we're waiting for the exhumation, and we know that if the body's not Noreen, that'll take us down one avenue. And if the autopsy confirms the sentiments of Dr. Cox that the cause of death was not as the state of Ohio rendered, we've got new scientific evidence that will warrant a retrial on the case. And I can assure you, with the dedicated responsibility of Tom Adgate and his crew in Akron, Larry Smith and Andy Kinder and Mike Minster, and the rest of the office staff there, that the retrial will not go and be the same sham and circus that the first trial was.
All right, you now have your own attorneys. A lot of times, people don't realize that, but a lot of times, the judges do not allow you to have your own attorneys.
Uh-huh.
Did you have your own attorneys in the first trial?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. A lot of times the judges don't let you have your own attorneys? That's a new one on me, on the American justice system. Always you have, I think that's in the Constitution of the United States. Believe it's Amendment 6, right to a speedy and swift trial with the jury of your peers, right to obtain your own counsel for proper defense. I'm pretty sure in the Bill of Rights, not 100%, but wow, unbelievable.
Well, what actually happened here was when the Beacon Journal article came out, Tom Adgate and his staff were so outraged by the injustice that if I was willing to take services from them, they would represent me, and that's exactly what happened. I asked Tom and his crew to represent me in all forthcoming proceedings, and that's where we stand at this point.
Do you think that the attorney that you had in the first case did an adequate job?
Oh, no, by no means. I think a perfect example of this is the fact that the fingerprint that we're talking about was never demonstrated to the jury when my own defense attorneys knew about it. Coupled with the fact that flecks of red paint were found in the debris from the gravesite, and when Prosecutor Mayer was asked why were these not analyzed to see if they came from a red truck or something like that, his
originates from Warren Correctional Institution.
His comment was that the red paint chips did not fit his theory of the case. Well, certainly, Dr. Boyle only had white vehicles. He didn't have any red vehicles. So I think to put out anything that would be exculpatory in that fashion for me would not have suited his objectives.
Let me ask you this: how long were you and Noreen married?
Almost 20 years.
20 years. Any children?
Yes, one natural child, Collier. He's 16 right now.
Oh, I was 16. See, I'm smart.
How does he feel about all this? I mean, this is
Well, he's very distraught. He was manipulated by David Messmore of the Mansfield Police Department and a few other people. In fact, during my pre-trial, David Messmore used to take him from the guardianship home on weekends and take him to his house. So the child basically was brainwashed into thinking his daddy's a murderer.
Now, Messmore...
So let's just get a couple of things straight. I did have a relationship with Dave Messmore and his wife, wonderful people. And they were probably the biggest reason at that time in my life that I didn't want to end my life, or that I at least made it through. There was not a lot of contact before the trial because I was the key witness. I wasn't brainwashed. I wasn't manipulated by anyone, because nobody can manipulate me to the fact that I woke up to the sound of a scream, then two thuds, then my father the next morning telling me, well, mommy took a little vacation, Collier. We're not going to tell the police. Like, all of that happened long before I met Lieutenant David Messmore, long before my mother's body was found, long before my father's trial occurred, or I was on the witness stand. The only person that's manipulating Collier is my father, through his letters, through sending me this tape, through giving these interviews. He's trying to manipulate people to see his point of view. This is a man grabbing at straws. And he knows no shame. He is well beyond the pale.
Guy that was in charge of the investigation.
That's correct.
And he was also the police officer that was having an affair with your wife Noreen.
That's correct.
While the two of you were married. Now, it was what rank is he? Is he a captain or lieutenant?
He's a captain, and he retired maybe about 6 or 8 months ago on a medical disability.
Now, is he married?
Is he married? Yes, I think he's been married 3 or 4 times.
Okay, so he was having an affair with your wife.
Dave
while he
was married twice.
And
correct.
He was taking your son to his house.
Was his wife
and that
like
was during while I was in County Jail. he was picking Collier up on Friday, keeping him at his house until Sunday, and taking Collier out out to the restaurants and out to the mall to play video games and buying him clothing, etc.
Did you protest that?
Yes, we did. When we found out, we protested it. The judge ordered injunction to keep the prosecuting attorney in the Mansfield Police Department away from Collier, and we think that they did stay away. However, prior to trial,
this call originates from Warren Correctional Institution.
Collier was prepped in an extensive preparation prior to his testimony by Attorney Mayer, and that was in violation of that standing court order.
Now, a couple of things that occur and a couple of facts that are missing here. So in this preparation of me being prepared, it is normal in the American justice system, for those of you that have been a witness in a criminal trial, you will know this, that the prosecutor, if you're whoever you are representing, whatever side that is, whether it's defense counsel or whether it is prosecution, they sit down with you and you have a discussion about what is going to go on in court, because they're in court every day. You most likely, as a citizen, are not. And it's a little fucking scary, just so you know, especially to a 12-year-old child. One of those conversations of this pretrial prep was, Collier, you do not have to testify if you don't want to. To which I believe I responded, over my dead body. But yeah, that's just standard. Now, I, again, was a child witness, so maybe, but no, there was no discussions. There was, hey, Collier, what did you hear? They do ask you the questions that they think that they're going to, but they don't tell you what to answer. You go over with a statement. But again, I was a very smart and articulate kid, and I remembered verbatim, and I will say this until the day I take my last breath. The easiest thing to remember and recite in life is the truth. So when it comes out of your mouth, it's so pure it flows. And again, the notion that I was coached or brainwashed, as if I'm that stupid, is utterly fanciful.
Okay, did he testify then in your trial?
Yes, he did.
And he testified for the prosecution?
That's correct.
Because you murdered my mother.
His testimony was reviewed by a child psychologist by the Beacon Journal, and they definitely said that his testimony was giving the appearance of being staged and brainwashed, quote unquote.
Now, again, this is kind of insulting to me, so I'm now hearing this for the first time. The thing is that I testified at trial. It was either 2.5 days or 1.5 days. For those of you that have been a part or not been a part of a criminal trial, or a legal trial in general, whether it's a civil trial or whatever, being on the witness stand for an entire day is an arduous and grueling process for an adult, let alone a 12-year-old boy. So one would think that if I was coached or there was any sort of mendacity in my testimony, meaning I was lying, I probably would have been broken. That's a long time to keep up an act or a performance in one of the scariest situations in my young life. The most terrifying, not one of the most terrifying, staring down a monster in court. So, wow.
That's interesting. Now, when was the last time you've seen him? Have you?
Well, prior to or after sentencing, I saw him once briefly at the prison here, and the last time I hadn't seen him until just this past November when he came down with his adoptive father, George Ziegler. So
I remember that day, George
Collier and
took me.
I had a tearful reunion the first or second week of November. And I call him
I don't
once
remember
a
it being
month, and
tearful.
we write letters back and forth.
What was your
remember it being
relationship,
tearful.
if any, with Ziegler? I mean, his adoptive father. Did this go through human services?
Don't fucking
or
say
what,
anything
social
bad about
services or
George.
what?
No, George Ziegler had a son in the same school that Collier was attending, and both George and Susan Ziegler, as good Christians, stepped forward to take over the education and the care and the love of Collier during my absence and Noreen's absence.
Well, we want to praise the Lord for that.
Yes, absolutely, praise the Lord. They're a very kind, caring, loving Christian couple.
Well, now let's just say that
I may not
the
have.
body is
I
exhumed.
may have lost my fucking shit if he had said something bad about George and Susan. So I'm very glad that didn't happen.
It proves that it is not Noreen. I guess our question is, where is Noreen, and what is she doing? I mean, at this time.
Yeah, that's something that's going to have to be vigorously pursued if it's not her. We're going to have to find out exactly what's going on.
Now, you said that you knew that she was involved with this black market of children.
Yes.
She obviously wasn't involved in this by herself. There's been some allegations, many allegations, about the Mansfield Police Department, all kinds of things, from gambling operations to prostitution operations to selling protections. And again, like I'm saying, these are allegations. We don't have any documentation here to prove it or to disprove it. This is, but there's been so many allegations over the years. Usually where there's some smoke, there's some fire.
I mean, this sounds like the plot to like a Martin Scorsese
that
film.
It's possible that.
Where's Whitey Bulger or John Gotti?
Maybe Mr.
Sammy the
Lismore
Bull
or others were involved with her in this?
Well, we have a strong suspicion through some documentation that Attorney Charles Lynch tried to assist her in the adoption of Chinese children in Ohio. There's some communication between between Noreen and between Lynch on that effect, and we filed a formal complaint with the disciplinary council about his conduct, but that was just whitewashed away, unfortunately. But as this case turns around and develops, that's going to be an area that we will pursue.
Are you safe where you're at right now? Okay, you're incarcerated. If in fact this body turns out to be someone who knew too much and gotten away, or in fact if it turns out to be Noreen, there's a reason that she's dead.
Correct.
There's a reason. Do you fear that maybe that your life might be in danger?
I have received no death threats or anything of that nature or any threatening gestures from anyone, staff or inmates. And I think it's important to point out here that all police officials and prison officials are not corrupt. Yes, there is a core nucleus of people who fit the proverbial description of a dirty cop.
Not everybody is a dirty cop, my father says.
But all police officers and judicial officials are not corrupt. And
we want to praise the Lord for that. We want to praise God that we do have, and we were doing that earlier on the program. We do that on a continuous basis. We praise the Lord for the pastors that have not left the gospel, that are still preaching the gospel, have not compromised. We praise the Lord for the judges,
praise the Lord,
who are still honest, the prosecutors that are still honest. There are so many out there that are being bought and sold. I mean, the bottom line in so much of the judicial system today is money. There's big money involved in estates, and one of the big rackets that is going on is when someone goes down, whatever they're worth, whether it's 1,000 or 5 million, that seems to be what the attorney's fees are, and these judges have a tendency to appoint friends of theirs to be the defense. Do you see things like that happening?
Pastor, what was your last part of the question?
I said, what happens? There's a tendency today. You see a lot of when men go to jail, they have estates, and it seems like right away the the amount of their worth is determined, and that seems to be what the attorneys' fees are. And it seems to be today that a lot of these judges appoint their friends.
Sure.
And when these guys go away, they end up with nothing, and these attorneys end up getting richer and richer. I mean, it's interesting that they would set bail for $5 million. Were you worth a lot of money when you were arrested?
Is this
no, that's all part of the myth. I think that was part of the overall effort.
Like, I got to stop this for a second. So what? And look, I Pastor Sanders that does this program, look, his agenda is not my father's. He runs, my father is just another guest on his program being interviewed, and he has a curious mind. And when I spoke to him, and this will be in the next episode, they do a lot of conspiracy theory discussion. I mean, he's been doing this, like he still does this 32 years later, or whatever, so 28 years later since this interview. And he told me that he was very upfront about all of that, and I found him to be a really nice and charming and very intelligent and kind man. So I have nothing against him hosting this, having this interview with my father, because it's just another guest to him, and exploring issues that he's passionate about, much like I do on this program as well. So this is what he's into. As far as judges appointing, there were judges, there was a lot of cronyism, and I experienced that in the courts when I dealt with certain things that went missing and monies and all kinds of stuff when I turned 18. But that is a discussion for another day. But my father did get to choose his defense counsel, and it was his divorce attorney, Charles Robinson, and then Robert Whitney, who is, I believe, still practicing law. I mean, I said this a couple of months ago on the program. I think he's still practicing law. And somebody was like, yeah, he's still practicing law, who is like probably the best criminal attorney in Central Ohio, easily. Represented many people. Very competent lawyer. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable that my father would say things about like my mother selling babies and things of that nature. Like, what respect for the dead do you have? Like, your wife is like, and at the end of the day, like, that you killed your wife. Oh my God.
Possibly to
got another minute.
Aggrandize or at least perpetuate the individual agendas of several people. I don't want to call
there's an agenda being perpetuated. That's for damn sure.
Individual agendas, but by placing a $5 million cash bond, you heighten the interest and you heighten the story level, etc. And I think this was all part of what the Mansfield Police Department and the Richland County prosecutor were attempting to do.
Okay, so then they had no personal financial gain in this thing.
Well, I don't really know. I believe that several of the attorneys did very well. In fact, I believe in my case there was at one time almost 12 or 13 attorneys involved in various aspects, acting as guardians for the children, guardians of the estate.
Okay, you stay right there, Dr. Boyle. We're out of time, folks. We're going to be back tomorrow, another exciting program. Till then, good afternoon, God bless, and remember, always, always keep fighting the fight.
You've been listening to What's Right, What's Left with your host, Radio Pastor Ernie Sanders.
Boy. Wow. Few of my people that listen to this tape on the Patreon said, hey, did you listen to this? And I said, no, I haven't listened to it, because I'm going to listen to it as I record this episode, which is what we're doing now. But they were like, you shouldn't listen to this. I'm so glad I did. There's a lot to take away from here. This is going to be very interesting, because this is going to tie into the next episode, again, like I said, where I am going to speak to Pastor Ernie Sanders and a gentleman named Jim Cluse, where earlier in the program they were referring to this book by Martin Yant called Rotten to the Core. Jim Cluse was an investigator who was looking into corruption in Central Ohio with police departments and with sort of nefarious activities. Of course, he alleges the Mansfield Police Department engaging in these activities. The interesting thing is that this sort of culture of whatever police malfeasance, misconduct, whatever that he alleges, started long before my mother, this situation, and very little of what he was looking into is my mother going missing and all of these things that my father is alleging. They just sort of connected with him, and I discussed this with them and sort of what my takeaway is, because I found both of those individuals to be very competent, very steadfast in what they believed and their personal convictions and beliefs. And as you guys will hear in that episode, you'll I hope come away with the same thing. Like, they're not to be vilified or excoriated for what they think is the truth, and they were ultimately listening to the word of a sociopath, which is interesting. But man, there's so much to take away from this episode. I know this is run a little longer than we normally do, but I gotta say, man, that was a lot. That was really heavy. It's like 2:00 in the morning as I'm recording this. I probably will get no sleep because my wheels will be turning. And I appreciate you guys hanging in, sticking in with me on this longer than expected episode. But I thought it was pretty cool to do this. And again, like, I found this tape and I was like, I got to get a tape player. I got to record this and share this with you guys because I felt this was really insightful. Sociopathy, narcissism is a dangerous thing, my friends. And, but hey, we get through it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it really helps to hear these types of stories, to listen and to be able to point out gaslighting, master manipulation, because I know a lot of us can relate to manipulative people in our lives, and we can't let them get away with this behavior. So hopefully by uncovering this and sharing parts of my story, my father's letters from prison, things like that, it really helps you guys grow as an audience and you learn so much more. Again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a lawyer. I do not work in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a hell of a lot of shit. But you know what? I'm here to share my story. If you like this video, please check out this one right here or this one right here, and check out the rest of the channel content. If you'd like to support, there are links in the show notes of today's episode. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.